December 19th, 1944. Ardennes Forest. Bastogne. Snow falls like ash from the sky. Thick. Relentless. The kind of cold that steals breath and stiffens fingers around a rifle trigger. If Patton didn't move in time, the 101st Airborne would be wiped out. All around Bastogne, German steel tightens its grip. Panzer divisions grind forward through frozen roads. Artillery flashes rip holes in the white forest. The shelling never stops. Day. Night.
No rhythm. No mercy.
Inside the town, nearly 10,000 American soldiers are trapped. Ammunition is rationed by the handful. Morphine is almost gone. Bandages are torn into strips, reused, frozen stiff. Wounded men lie in cellars, breathing shallow, listening to the thunder above them. Each explosion shakes dust from the ceiling. Each minute feels borrowed. Outside, the Germans believe Bastogne will fall. They call it inevitable. The weather makes sure of it. Low clouds smother the sky. Snowstorms ground Allied aircraft. No supply drops. No air cover.
No evacuation.
The men of the 101st stare upward anyway, hoping, knowing nothing is coming. A paratrooper whispers to another in the dark. "How long you think we got?" No one answers. Hundreds of miles away, at Supreme Headquarters, the war presses down on one man's shoulders. General Dwight D. Eisenhower stands over a massive map of Europe. The Ardennes Bulge is circled in red. Bastogne sits at its center like a wounded heart. He hasn't slept properly in days. Advisors crowd the room. Voices overlap. Logistics officers shake their heads. The roads are iced solid. The Germans have armor superiority. Relief could take weeks, if it's even possible. Eisenhower rubs his eyes. Then asks the question everyone fears. How long can they hold? Silence. Finally, someone answers. Quietly. 4 days. Maybe less. 4 days. If Bastogne falls, the Germans control the road network. Allied lines fracture. The offensive stalls. The psychological blow alone could echo across the Atlantic. Eisenhower thinks of the men freezing in foxholes. Thinks of the families waiting for Christmas letters that may never come. In his private notes, he scribbles a single line. Failure here is unthinkable. He exhales, barely audible. America is counting on you, he whispers, to himself, to the map, to fate. Don't let me down. There is only one name left on the board. George S. Patton. Brilliant. Aggressive. Reckless, some say. The only commander who might attempt the impossible, turn an entire army in the dead of winter and strike north through chaos. But even Patton would be racing time. German armor is already closing in. The clock is ticking. 4 days. The snow keeps falling. The guns keep firing. And in Bastogne, frozen hands grip rifles as soldiers wait to see whether help is coming. Or whether history will end for them in the snow. Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force. Verdun. December 19th, 1944. The room is quiet, too quiet. Maps cover the long table, edges curled from constant handling. Red and blue grease pencil lines slash across the Ardennes like open wounds. Bastogne sits in the center, circled, boxed in, suffocating. Snow taps against the windows outside. Inside, the air is heavy with cigarette smoke and unspoken dread. General Dwight D. Eisenhower stands at the head of the table, hands planted on the map. His face is drawn. Eyes bloodshot. Every man in the room knows why they're here. The 101st Airborne is surrounded. Outnumbered. Running out of ammunition. Running out of time. Eisenhower breaks the silence. How quickly, he asks, voice measured but strained. Can we mount a relief operation? No one answers immediately. A staff officer clears his throat. Another general adjusts his glasses, staring at the map as if it might offer mercy. Finally, a quiet reply. Sir, given the weather, the roads, the German armor. He pauses. At least a week. Maybe more. Eisenhower doesn't look up. We don't have a week, he says. 4 days. 4 days is all they have. The words hang in the air. Reports arrive in fragments. Radio messages crackle. Couriers move in and out of the room. German panzer divisions are pressing from the east and south. Allied units in the north are bogged down. To the south, the Third Army is facing the wrong direction, its supply lines stretched, its divisions oriented east. To reach Bastogne, an entire army would need to pivot 90 degrees in the dead of winter. Frozen roads. Fuel shortages. Traffic jams of armor and trucks miles long. One general shakes his head. It's not just difficult, sir. It's impossible. Eisenhower finally looks up. Impossible, he repeats softly. His eyes drift back to Bastogne. He imagines the men there, freezing, wounded, waiting. He thinks of the message he hasn't received yet, but knows is coming. We are holding. But barely. Then a chair scrapes across the floor. General George S. Patton leans forward, calm, almost casual. His helmet rests beside him. His eyes are sharp. Alert. Ready. I can do it, Patton says. Heads turn. I can pivot 3 divisions north, he continues, tapping the map. 100 miles. 48 to 72 hours. A murmur ripples through the room. That's madness. The roads won't hold. The Germans will see it coming. Patton doesn't flinch. I've already prepared contingency plans, he says. If the order comes, my 4th Armored Division attacks north on December 22nd. Silence. Eisenhower stares at him. George, he says carefully. Can you genuinely do this? Patton meets his gaze without hesitation. Yes, sir.
No bravado. No smile.
Just certainty. I've had the army praying for clear weather, Patton adds quietly. When it breaks, we move. The room divides instantly. Some generals exchange looks of disbelief. Others whisper calculations under their breath. Fuel tonnage. Bridge limits. March speeds in snow. Eisenhower raises a hand. If this fails, he says, voice low, the 101st is lost. Morale across the front collapses. And you? He pauses, looking directly at Patton. You will own that failure. Patton nods once. I understand the stakes. Eisenhower turns back to the map. His mind races. Risk versus responsibility. Strategy versus humanity. He thinks of the calendar. December 19th, decision. December 20th, movement. December 22nd, attack. 4 days. He straightens. Very well, Eisenhower says. Patton, you get your chance. A collective breath is released. The decision is made. As the meeting breaks, officers hurry to telephones and radios. Orders begin flowing south. Engines will soon roar to life in the snow. Patton picks up his helmet. Outside, the storm still rages. But somewhere beyond the clouds, the weather is shifting. The clock is ticking. December 20th, 1944. Before dawn, engines roar to life in the frozen darkness. Patton's Third Army does something no army is supposed to do in the middle of a winter offensive. It turns. Entire corps pivot 90 degrees, abandoning eastward momentum and lunging north toward Bastogne. Snow chokes the roads. Ice locks the bridges. Vehicles slide into ditches. Tank crews beat frozen steel with hammers just to free their tracks. The march begins anyway. Columns stretch for miles. Sherman tanks grind forward at walking speed. Infantry trudge beside them, rifles slung, breath hanging in the air like smoke. Men sleep sitting upright, boots never coming off. German artillery finds the roads. Shells explode among fuel trucks. Ambushes bloom from tree lines. Progress stalls, then crawls, then surges again. Patton pushes relentlessly. No stopping, he orders. Move through the night. December 21st. Reports reach Eisenhower by the hour. Third Army advanced 5 miles. Enemy resistance heavy. Roads nearly impassable. Eisenhower stands over the map, pencil in hand, moving blue arrows inch by inch. Bastogne still feels far away. He writes in his notebook, pauses, then crosses out a sentence. If they fail. He doesn't finish it. Instead he whispers, barely audible.
10,000 men.
Outside his office, snow piles against the windowsills. Inside, the clock ticks louder than it should. In Bastogne, time feels different. The 101st Airborne is still holding, but just barely. Ammunition is counted round by round. Artillery fires only when absolutely necessary. Medics work with frozen fingers, cutting uniforms off wounded men, knowing they can't save everyone. German shells slam into the town day and night. Then a white flag appears. A German officer arrives with a surrender demand. Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe reads it once. Then again. He looks up, incredulous. Nuts, he says. The reply is delivered. The message spreads like wildfire through the cellars and foxholes. Morale surges, not because help has arrived, but because surrender is no longer an option. December 22nd. The weather shifts. Clouds begin to break. A thin slice of blue appears in the sky. Patton sees it and smiles. Today, he says, we attack. The 4th Armored Division surges forward. Tanks crash through roadblocks. Infantry clears villages house by house. German resistance stiffens, but the momentum is unstoppable. Eisenhower receives the message. Patton is attacking north. He closes his eyes for a moment. Then the next report arrives. Progress slow. Heavy opposition. The clock keeps ticking. December 23rd. Aircraft finally break through the clouds over Bastogne. Parachutes blossom against the gray sky. Supplies. Ammunition. Medical kits. Food. Men cheer. Some cry. Others simply stare upward, too exhausted to react. But it's not enough. German armor still presses in. The noose hasn't loosened yet. Eisenhower paces his office late into the night. He drafts letters, contingency messages no one else sees. If Bastogne falls. If Patton is stopped. If 4 days become too many. He tears the letters up. December 24th. Christmas Eve. Patton's columns advance another few miles. Not enough. German counterattacks slam into the spearhead. Tanks burn. Roads clog with wreckage. Engineers work under fire, laying bridges across frozen streams. Soldiers fight with numb hands, pulling triggers they can barely feel. One staff officer whispers as reports come in. He's actually doing it. But doing it fast enough? Eisenhower receives another message. Maximum effort required. The 101st cannot hold much longer. He sends a reply himself. Continue advance at all costs. December 25th. Christmas Day. There is no peace. The Third Army pushes through snow and smoke. Each mile costs blood. Each village becomes a battlefield. In Bastogne, the men wait. 4 days have passed. The limit is gone. Only hope remains. December 26th. Morning breaks gray and cold. Patton's lead elements are close now, so close they can hear the guns from Bastogne. Eisenhower stands frozen over the map, eyes locked on a single road. Hours matter. Minutes matter. 10,000 lives balance on the edge of time. The impossible march nears its climax. December 26th, 1944. The snow still falls, but something has changed. At the front of Patton's advance, engines roar through the gray morning. Exhaust hangs low over the road. Men move on instinct now, faces hollow, eyes fixed forward. They are close. The Third Army's spearhead pushes through the last belt of German resistance south of Bastogne. Enemy guns fire from tree lines. Anti-tank rounds scream past advancing Shermans. Infantry fans out, boots crunching over frozen ground, rifles up, breath burning in their lungs. Artillery thunders behind them, clearing a narrow path forward. Every yard is fought for. A tank lurches over a cratered road. Another grinds through a hedgerow thick with ice. Soldiers stumble, fall, get up again. No one stops. Late afternoon. A patrol moves cautiously through drifting snow toward a battered road junction. Smoke hangs in the air. The sound of distant gunfire echoes from Bastogne itself. Then, movement. American uniforms. A paratrooper steps from behind a wrecked vehicle, rifle raised. His face is hollow, beard rimmed with frost. His eyes narrow, then widen. "Third Army?" he asks, voice cracking. "Fourth Armored Division," comes the reply. For a moment, no one speaks. Then the paratrooper exhales, a shaky laugh breaking free. "About damn time." Hands reach out. Shoulders are clapped. Helmets bump together. Some men sit down in the snow, suddenly unable to stand. The corridor to Bastogne is open. The 101st Airborne, battered, freezing, bloodied, has been reached. Word spreads through the town in minutes. They're here. Patton's here. Men emerge from cellars. From foxholes. From shattered buildings. Faces streaked with grime and exhaustion break into smiles. One soldier leans against a wall, eyes closed, whispering, "Thank God." Another grips a Third Army tanker's hand and refuses to let go. Inside Bastogne, the guns still fire, but the siege is broken. The impossible has happened. Miles away, at Supreme Headquarters, a telephone rings. Eisenhower's aide freezes, then turns. "Sir, it's General Patton." Eisenhower takes the receiver. For a brief second, no one in the room breathes. "George," Eisenhower says. Patton's voice comes through the line, gruff, steady, unmistakable. "Ike, we're through to Bastogne." Eisenhower closes his eyes. The room seems to tilt as the weight of the last week lifts all at once. His shoulders sag. His hand tightens on the phone. "Thank God," he says quietly. Patton continues, almost dismissive. "Just doing my job. The men did the real work." Eisenhower opens his eyes. They are wet. "No, George," he replies, voice firm but thick with emotion. "You moved an army 90 degrees in a blizzard. You saved 10,000 lives." He pauses. "That's why you're invaluable." Around him, staff officers exchange looks, some smiling, some stunned. A whisper moves through the room. "He actually did it, against all odds." Back at the front, Patton stands beside his men, boots crusted with ice, helmet low over his brow. He watches the link-up quietly, nodding once. There is no speech.
No celebration.
Just relief. He turns to an aide. "Keep the pressure on," he says. "This war isn't over." Strategically, the breakthrough changes everything. Bastogne holds the road network of the Ardennes. Its relief fractures the German offensive. Momentum shifts. The enemy's gamble begins to collapse. 3 divisions. 100 miles. Dead winter. What military textbooks said couldn't be done, was done. That night, Eisenhower sits alone. The maps are still there. The arrows now reach Bastogne. He studies them in silence. In his private notes, he writes carefully, deliberately. Patton has saved not just Bastogne, but the Ardennes campaign. He sets the pen down and exhales, a long, steady breath. Outside, snow continues to fall across Europe. Inside, something rare settles over the room. Relief.
Pride.
Gratitude. And the quiet understanding that history has just turned. December 27th, 1944. The guns around Bastogne still rumble in the distance, but the crisis has passed. Inside his headquarters, Dwight D. Eisenhower sits alone. The maps remain spread across the table. Bastogne is no longer circled in red. The arrows reach it now, clean, decisive lines that mark survival. Eisenhower holds a letter in his hand. Then another. His pen rests nearby, unmoving. For the first time in days, he allows himself to breathe. In his private notes, he writes quietly, deliberately. The relief of Bastogne lifted a weight I had carried for weeks. 10,000 men lived because one army moved faster than reason allowed. He pauses. Then adds. And because I trusted George Patton. Eisenhower knew Patton better than most. Brilliant. Relentless. Difficult. A commander capable of operational genius and political disaster in equal measure. To lead Patton was not to restrain him, but to aim him. That reality weighs heavily as Eisenhower drafts a letter dated December 27, 1944. George, he writes. Your planning and execution at Bastogne were extraordinary. You moved an army under conditions that defied logic. Lives were saved because of your foresight and resolve. Then, carefully. Never forget the responsibility that accompanies such talent. Praise and warning. Admiration and command. That balance defined their relationship. In separate correspondence to General George Marshall and to Winston Churchill, Eisenhower is more candid. The public story will celebrate victory. Privately, he admits the truth. How close we came, he writes. How narrow the margin was between triumph and catastrophe. The relief of Bastogne, he notes, was more than a battlefield success, it was a turning point. The German offensive had broken itself against American resolve. The momentum of the Battle of the Bulge shifted decisively. 3 divisions. 100 miles. Winter's worst. A logistical impossibility made real through audacity and discipline. As days pass, Bastogne changes. Supplies flow freely down the corridor Patton opened. Wounded are evacuated. Fresh units rotate in. Soldiers of the 101st Airborne, thin, hollow-eyed, unbroken, finally sleep without the sound of artillery overhead. Some laugh. Some write letters home. Others simply sit in the weak winter sun, letting warmth touch their faces for the first time in weeks. The cost was high. The courage higher. In January 1945, Eisenhower reflects again, this time for himself. In his diary, he writes, "Leadership is often choosing which risk to accept. At Bastogne, the risk was enormous. But the greater danger would have been hesitation." He thinks of Patton, of trusting a commander whose flaws were as legendary as his talent. Extraordinary ability, Eisenhower concludes, must sometimes be managed, not constrained. It is not an excuse. It is a lesson. Years later, in his memoirs, Eisenhower returns to Bastogne once more. Not to the maps. Not to the arrows. But to the moment of decision. Patton's relief of Bastogne vindicated my trust, he writes. It demonstrated operational brilliance, human courage, and the necessity of bold action when time itself becomes the enemy. He does not romanticize war. He remembers the weight, the fear, the lives hanging in the balance. History would remember the victory. But Eisenhower remembered the nights without sleep, the clocks, the maps, the single question that mattered more than all others. Can they get there in time? They did. Because men endured. Because leaders decided. Because audacity met responsibility. The snow melted. The war moved on. But the lesson remained. True leadership is not the absence of risk. It is the courage to accept it. And the wisdom to place trust where it matters most.